Hello everyone, welcome back to Tutorials of Tone. My name is Alex. Thank you so much for joining me. What we're talking about today is a stock preset I've created for dance and wedding band gigs. Let's dive right into these tones that will help get you through 90% of any dance or wedding band gig that you're going to be called to do. First up, we have a clean tone. A lovely clean tone that will get you through any of your cocktail hour or jazz sets that you might be playing at the beginning of the night. It also works really well for any funk or Motown dance tunes that are going to be called. It's got a really solid high headroom tone coming from our USA Rhythm 1 amp. Very pristine clean, pretty neutral settings here. Our input EQ at stock settings. Running into that, we have our Studio FF compressor, the release time of which is slightly lower than stock. We have no auto makeup gain, but 6.5 dB level to make up for the compressed sound. This is really great for keeping that tone nice and even when you switch from single notes to strumming patterns, etc. Keep yourself alive in the mix. We're running that into a pair of Mesa Boogie cabinets throughout every one of these scenes in the preset. We've got a 4x12 recto straight with an SM7. That is the bulk of my tone. And then I've dialed in just a bit of this 121, which adds that high, mid, high sizzle. I dial it back because when we get to those upper gain sort of tones, I like having a nice, even, smooth signal, and the fizz has been getting to me this year. So, dialed that back from 0 to -5 and now to -9 dB, where I really like it. In our preamp section, we have a 40 Hz low cut and an 8500 Hz high cut. Now, the low cut I could dial up 80 Hz, sometimes 120 Hz, depending on the room, but usually 40 suffices for all of the tones that are here. The high cut, when you start pumping volume and you're competing with the sibilance of lyrics, you know, the S's, T's, and P's of a vocalist, when you're dealing with horns, strings, keyboard patches, or the brilliance of drum cymbals, it's really nice to dial this back, limit your bandwidth, stay alive in the mix. You're not using those frequencies anyways. Throughout every scene, we are also using a medium plate reverb, just a little bit of breath in there. Really nice to have, especially if they're making board recordings. You don't sound so sterile and lifeless, but not too much. You are playing in a live room after all, which will provide its own reverb. So, good to have that. Next up is our blues, our edge of breakup sort of tone, and it sounds like this. This is a really nice tone when the tunes progressively get a little bit more drive. We're not quite into the rock phase yet, but you can play a lot on just this tone. What's really great about this tone is it's almost identical to our previous. The only difference is that our blues overdrive is engaged, as we have a really pristine amp that's not an analog sort of thing. It's a preamp from Mesa Boogie. We need to get the distortion from a pedal. So our gain is at 6. Our level to make up for the compressed signal is at 5.5 as opposed to the stock setting of 5. Up next, we have our Marshall tone. This is our overdrive classic rock rhythm thing. This is a JCM 800, or as it's called in here, the Brit 800. Pretty neutral settings across the board. Our input EQ has a 60 hertz roll off on the low end and a 10K roll off on the high end. It should also be noted that this is one of the rare instances where I don't use the Mesa Boogie cab pair. I'm using a pair of Marshall cabs, 1960 with a V30 and then a 57 rolled off just a hair. We've got a 10K high cut on this, no low cut. This really helps to balance things out and match our Mesa Boogie. And that sounds like this. Really great classic rock tone. This will get you through the bulk of any tunes called in that sort of vein. It's really nice to have this on tap. If you want to compare that with using the Mesa Boogie, you have the option. Some semi-subtle differences in there, but you have the options for either in this preset. And our final scene is our JP lead. I grew up playing in a Dream Theater tribute and cover bands that were playing prog. I grew up playing Mesa Boogies. This sounds like home to me, so it was really nice to have and a really good tone to have on ready. I grabbed the amp settings tweaked for this Morse Music Man guitar from John's 2021-22 live amp settings. We've got an input EQ pretty stock, just a little bit of a hump around 1K for lead tones. Not too drastic of a scoop on the graphic EQ curve. We do have a dual delay, which is grabbed from the Gift of Tone preset that John provided in 2022. This is 1A short, I believe, so we have 450 milliseconds on one side, 700 milliseconds on the other. I just dialed down the level from -9 to -12.5 dB as you're in a dance band, not a prog band or a trio doing instrumental guitar music. As you could see, the filter block engaged when we switched over to this scene. This is a 3 dB boost. You can access this from any of your tones at any time by clicking on the far right foot switch and holding. This is set up to control switch number 3, so you can engage this on your clean tone, your blues, edge of breakup, or your overdrive tone, depending on what song you may need it for. But it automatically engages for our JP lead tone. This is a really great tone to have at your beck and call. It fits a lot of purposes, and it's really nice to have the ability to turn off that lead boost for, say, the end of a solo where the counter melody continues and the vocal comes back in. Just hold that switch. You can turn it off. If you need to turn off the delay, that is the middle foot switch. And also, say you're on a clean tone. We have a delay set up for that. It's just 500 milliseconds of digital stereo delay. Keep it pristine, keep it clean. Our blues patch has a mono tape delay. And our overdrive has a stereo tape delay at 500 milliseconds. Nice to have these should you solo and need the delay, or maybe you just need the delay, not the boost. Any combination is possible here. Another thing not mentioned yet, the wah block. We have a lot of different options here. For every scene, we have a different wah, just because we can. So for this first one, our funk wah, for maybe our funk tones. Great for those funky tones. I've got my birthday and a rush reference for the min and max frequencies. I was just going to start there and tweak. It works really well, keeping that high end for our cleans under 2200, so it's not an ice pick in the forehead. When we move to our blues tone, we get a Vox 846, and while our frequency min and max do not change too much, all of our other variables do change quite a bit. It's a really nice thing to just have a varying tone on your wah, just because you can. When we switch over to our Brit 800, our Marshall tone, bringing in a Clyde wah just to change it up again. As you can see, the frequency min max on this much higher by default. I left it there just to leave it there. Feel free to tweak. I don't typically use a wah on this channel, but the option is there should you need it in a solo or any obscure tune that gets called. For our JP lead, we've got the JP wah. I grabbed the schematics from the Dunlop website, which you can do as well, or find a block library or the Leon Todd video explaining how to set this up. Really low frequency min of 240 and 1500 on that high end. You can take it up to 1800, no higher than that. But the magic sauce of this wah is the graphic EQ, which has that nice mid-range hump, which can give us really hell yeah. The lower you keep that max frequency range, the more you will stay in a mix. Again, decrease bandwidth, increase in the mix. The last block we haven't yet talked about is the chorus block. Now this doesn't default on any of the tones that we have, but it is there, and we've got 4 unique tones dialed in, just in case you need that for any given tune. I have this set to a Boss CE2, our dry tone. Lovely. We also have a Dimension 2 C. Really great if you need to get an ambient sort of thing. We've got our digital stereo. A lot less subtle than the previous examples. And finally, our 80s style. Almost has a flange-like quality to it. You can turn these on any scene. I do have a scene ignore function engaged because I like to keep, for this dance stock preset, my chorus pedal on one particular sound, just to keep it homogeneous. I do have another dance stock preset with different chorus blocks that are assigned to each, much like the wah. If you need to get that rush chord on, you have the option. Why wouldn't you play that on a gig? Now, some of you may need to get a little bit heavier in that third set. There is an unused, recently retired from this preset, amp channel. This is the 2C++. This is in channel B. This is dialed in to a Metallica-esque tone, so if people are covering Warrant, Rat, Dokken, Poison, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, you've got this covered. Nice to have, but again, you're playing a dance wedding band. Probably not getting this called, but if you need it, it is hiding there in the amp block. That about does it for this preset. If you liked this video, you can find more videos, tutorials of tone, Fractal 101 videos, gear reviews, playthroughs, etc., all throughout the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.